Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Dartmouth House, the home of the English-speaking union. I'd like to welcome everyone in this room and all of those of you in the 50-odd countries around the world who are tuning in tonight. I'm sure we're in for a fascinating evening. Can I please introduce Jane Easton, Director General of the English-speaking unions. Jane.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the English-speaking union. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm delighted to share with you a little of what the English-speaking union is and does. We're an international educational charity which aspires to increase global understanding through communication in the English language. We're well known for nearly 100 years now for our public speaking and debating activities, and for our scholarships and awards, which allow young people and professionals in many fields to broaden their horizons. We're also a membership organisation, and this allows us reach into communities throughout the UK and in over 50 member countries. The English-speaking union's English Language Council, under the chairmanship of Professor David Crystal, is a thought leader in developing English language engagement right across the world. The Council has been instrumental in initiating many important partnerships for the English-speaking union, and I'm delighted to see several members of the English Language Council here tonight. This lecture series explores topics relevant to the global community of English language speakers. Previous speakers have included Professor David Crystal, Lucinda Hawksley and Ben Crystal, and this the fourth in the series, working very closely with the British Council, to whom we're indebted for a very fruitful partnership. Today's lecture is on the language of science, how to make science more publicly accessible. One of the ESU's most valued scholarships is for postdoctoral scientists, the Lindemann Trust Fellowships. 3 annual grants worth $30,000 each are provided for research work in the USA and are awarded to graduates of exceptional promise, both in the pure and applied physical sciences, who have shown capacity for producing original research. You'll be pleased to hear that we're currently accepting applications for these scholarships. Information is on our website at esu.org, wherever you are in the world, and the staff here tonight will be happy to speak to anyone who's interested. Finally, just to say that we're really delighted to have you all with us, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane, and can I now ask Anna Searle, Director English Language at the British Council, to say a few words as well. Anna.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you very much to Jane for the warm welcome to the British Council here in their beautiful venue. It's a real pleasure to be here at the English-speaking union. Good evening and welcome from the British Council. You know us very well, many of you in the room and many of you online, for our English language work, but tonight is a little bit different, so I thought that I would take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we've done with science and English. British Council France has been working in partnership with the French Ministry of Education since 2005 to implement the Science in Schools programme. Researchers or university teams from the United Kingdom conduct sessions in schools on a variety of topics related to science. This allows students to hear and speak English in an authentic context while improving their image of science and researchers. And obviously we look forward to hearing more about this over the next hour or so. Another area where we've worked with science and communication is FameLab. FameLab also supports researchers to showcase their work internationally, working with the brightest new talents in science communication globally to engage the public directly with scientific subjects that affect our society. So that's just to give you a brief idea of where science and language interacts for us in the British Council. But the main event is obviously our panel, and I would now like to ask our host and chair this evening, Quentin Cooper, who is presenter of BBC Radio 4's weekly science programme, Material World, and has been described by the Times as the world's most enthusiastic man, and I can vouch for that when putting his microphone on. He's very enthusiastic. So I will leave Quentin to say a little bit more to introduce the event this evening. Please join me in welcoming the experts, and I hope you all have a very good evening.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, I don't know quite how you do put on a microphone enthusiastically, but if there's a way, I must have found it as well. And I would like to say as well, since Anna mentioned FameLab, I'm, among other things, the host of the British and international finals of FameLab, and also, for historical accuracy, the former presenter of Radio 4's Material World, since it is now one of those great programmes gone to the great radio archive in the sky. So it's a great pleasure for me to be here at the English Speaking Union, especially with mention of the great David Crystal, who I used to work with on a radio series 20 plus years ago, where he had a slot on English language and the use of language back then, and he's continued that work down the decades. So, science and the English language. As you may have noticed, we're having this English Language Council lecture at the English Speaking Union in English with a full panel of English-speaking scientists. So that might seem to indicate some bias. We tend to accept English and science as natural bedfellows, but is that because of something about the nature of English or the nature of science, or just historical happenstance? That's one of the things we're going to attempt to explore tonight, why English has become so accepted as the international language of science. We'll also try and look at if there's room within that for how science is communicated to be improved, and as Jane said, the role of language in making science more publicly accessible, plus of course quite a lot of things that I hope will be emergent based on your points and questions, and also of course on what we hear from our main speaker. And that main speaker is Roberto Trotta, who I'll introduce in a minute, but since this is all about good communication, I should also tell you that he will speak for about 25 minutes. 25 minutes, I'll be timing you. And after that he'll be joined by Aarathi Prasad and George Zarkadakis, who will also go into more detail about at the time, and then we will pick up on a few things, and then I'll throw it open to yourselves. Now, by yourselves, I do of course mean yourselves in the room, but I also mean those of you who are joining us online from the 50 aforementioned countries around the world. You can contribute to the discussion by YouTube and also by tweeting. That it's hashtag ELCSci, E-L-C-S-C-I, hashtag ELCSci. If it's easier, I am at QWERTY. I'm saying that mostly because at the English Speaking Union, it's something you're all jealous of as a hashtag, I'm absolutely sure. At QWERTY, don't know quite how I managed to land that one. So try that one, and I'll try and check my Twitter feed as well as we go. Now after that, there is a networking reception, but don't focus on the drinks now. Focus on the fun, yeah, I can see that. Focus on the fun that comes before that, and that fun is about to start with a man whose Big Bang to Black Holes Guide to the Universe has just been published. But unlike every other work on cosmology and the history of publishing, The Edge of the Sky uses only the 1,000 most common English words. That means no telescope, no scientist, no universe. So how did he do it? Why did he do it? And what else does he think about science and the English language? Please welcome Senior Lecturer in Astrophysics at Imperial College London, Dr Roberto Trotta.
Thank you very much, Quentin. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And thanks for being here to those in this room. And hello to those of you who are following us via the worldwide computer. I am very pleased to be here tonight talking to people who want to learn how to speak like Mr. Shakespeare, and to teachers who show them how to do so. Also people who think about how Mr. Shakespeare would speak if he were around today, and how that might change in the next few years. So really, this is the perfect place for me to talk about the rings, and the rather strange way that it is explained in my new book, The Edge of the Sky. This book came out of a little idea that it should be possible to talk about very hard things in a straightforward way that all people can understand. The problem with student people like myself, you see, is that sometimes we get carried away and speak about our work using words in a tongue that only other student people can understand. This makes it not possible to have a conversation with other people, people like you. After a little while, your eyes will begin to stare into empty space, and you probably walk away as soon as you can with a silent sigh, happy to have escaped. A way to avoid all that is by using only the most used 1,000 words in our tongue. When I heard about this, I thought that it could be fun to use it to explain the entire All There Is. This is what my book is about, and tonight I'd like to share with you some of the ideas behind the book and the story of how this slightly crazy idea became reality. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that after a decade spent in the UK, my proficiency in English isn't really very good. And in fact, to average only about 100 words per year is not great, I admit. But this little piece was written in this strange language that is the language that you obtain if you restrict your lexicon to only the most common 1,000 words in English. And tonight I'd like to tell you a little bit more about it and what it did for me and what it did for the way the science of the universe, that's to say the All There Is, can be presented. So before I start, I'd like to invite you to turn your phones on to join the conversation online with the hashtag ELCSCI, and by turning start topic if you want to join the conversation later. So, the fact is that English is the language, the official or the unofficial language of science. But the question is, what kind of language is it? I want to start tonight's reflections by going back a few years, to 1965 in fact, when these two gentlemen, Arnold Penzias and Robert Wilson, were doing some interesting experiment in the Bell Labs in New Jersey, using a horn antenna that you can see depicted here. This is a kind of telescope, not any kind of telescope like the ones we're used to seeing. It's a telescope that picks up a kind of light that's called microwave light. Exactly the same kind of light that you use in your microwave ovens to cook your food. It's invisible to the naked eye. And what they were doing in the 1960s, they were trying to pick up microwaves that were bounced off passing satellites in a primitive way of telecommunication. But the problem was that they could not get their experiment to work because they kept picking up a strange sort of noise that they could not get rid of, no matter how hard they tried. So they dismantled the telescope and they scrapped away all the pigeon poop that was in it. And they then put it back together and they tried again, but they couldn't get it to work. Until one day they picked up the phone and they called their colleagues at Princeton, where a team of scientists led by Bob Dickey was trying to put together such an experiment precisely to look for that noise. Because the Princeton people knew there was something important in that faint signal that this telescope was picking up. What happened then is that Penzias and Wilson, convinced that they had picked up something interesting, they wrote their discovery in a short paper that appeared in 1965 in the Astrophysical Journal. And the title of this short, one-page long paper is A Measurement of Excess Antenna Temperature at 4080 megacycle per second. Not exactly descriptive. What were they trying to say? They were trying to say, we've picked up a noise that's the luminous echo of the Big Bang itself. We've got proof that the universe began in a hot fireball 13 billion years ago. Really? Is that what they were trying to say? Well, yes, but they didn't quite say it in those words. And so the question is, this is English and scientific English, but what does it say about our science to people who are not steeped in the kind of language that we, the scientists, use? So you might think, well, actually, this is 1965. Communication science was not that much developed back then, so maybe things have improved in the last 50 years or so. So let's fast forward to 1999, when another team of astronomers made another astounding discovery, and that one, like the previous one, Nobel Prize worthy as well. A team of about 40 astronomers, led by Saul Perlmutter, made an incredible finding. They reported it as measurement of omega and lambda. Notice the appearance now of Greek letters here. You know, when we don't know, we want to appear smarter than we are, we put in Greek letters because we're showing you that Latin letters are not quite enough for us. Measurements of omega and lambda from 42 high redshift supernovae. So let's read the abstract. The abstract says, we report measurements of a mass density omega m and cosmological constant energy density omega lambda of the universe based on the analysis of 42 type 1a supernovae discovered by the Supernova Cosmology Project, etc., etc. Then it goes on. The key bit is this. The measurement yields a joint probability distribution of the cosmological parameters that is approximated by the relation 0.8 omega matter minus 0.6 omega lambda, approximately equal to minus 0.2 plus minus 0.1 in the region of interest, etc., etc. The data are strongly inconsistent with the lambda equals 0 flat cosmology. What does it mean? It means we've discovered a new form of energy, dark energy, that's ripping the universe apart, and it's making it expand faster and faster with time, and it's going to make the universe become ever larger forever in the future. And that's not the message that exactly gets through this scientific paper. Fast forward to the present day, and another Nobel Prize discovery, observation of a new boson at a mass of 125 GeV with the CMS experiment at the LHC. Now, this is a paper by the CMS collaboration. Now, the author names have disappeared altogether because this is the CMS collaboration. It's 3,000 scientists. This is just a small fraction of the collaboration. They operate the compact muon solenoid. You see a small part of the reproduction of the compact muon solenoid in the background of the slides. That is what compact means in nowadays science. It's a 5-story high detector at CERN, the particle physics accelerator. And what did they discover? Results are presented. Now notice we go over to the passive form here to make it even more impersonal. Results are presented from searches for the standard model Higgs boson in a proton-proton collision at square root of S7 and 8 TeV in the compact muon solenoid experiment at LHC, using data sample corresponding to integrated luminosities of up to 5.1 inverse femtobarn at 7 TeV and 5.3 inverse femtobarn at 8 TeV, etc. An excess of events is observed above the expected background. What does that mean? It means we've discovered the God particle, the Higgs boson, and somebody's going to collect the Nobel Prize for it. So, the point that I'm trying to make is simple. This is scientific English, and it is not exactly understandable. Now, it is understandable to specialists, of course, and it's fair enough. Those papers are scientific papers written for specialists, by specialists, for specialists. But for somebody like me who is interested in public communication science, this leaves us at a point where we need a formal translation of this English into normal English. Those papers could be written in Mandarin, as far as I'm concerned. They couldn't be more understandable, I think, by somebody who doesn't have a PhD in theoretical physics. And I have a PhD in theoretical physics, and I understand them only because they are in my field. People down the corridor don't understand them, and equally I don't understand their science. And I spent 20 years trying to understand this stuff. So how do we translate this stuff in a way that everybody can understand it, and everybody can partake in these immense cultural discoveries? Those are questions that really are at the heart of our place in the universe, and those are questions that the public at large is hugely interested in, and people really want to hear about them. So for many years now I've been thinking about ways of doing this translation, and I've experimented in various ways. Here's one of the ways I try to do it, by using cookery and food as an analogy. Here in this case, a pizza dough as an analogy, a pretty good analogy actually for the expansion of the universe. You can see in this slide, the universe expanding. You can see there's a black olive at the center, quote unquote, of this universe, which is our galaxy, and then there's other olives, the green olives, those are other galaxies, and as the pizza dough rises, you can see the galaxies expanding away from each other. Now, the French bean there, stick there is a measuring device. That does not expand, so you can see that everything else expands, but the measuring stick. You can also see that, seen from the perspective of every other olive in the universe, our olive is moving away from them as well. So we are not at the center of the universe, the universe is expanding. And it worked quite well, and at the end you get a fantastic focaccia bread as well. Then I put on a traveling show with cookery and food to try and explore some of those ideas in more depth. I worked with artists and designers and architects creating artwork to try to express in a more tangible way those abstract cosmological phenomena, pinball machines and the likes. But all the while, I was really looking for something different. I was trying to search for a language that would be able to bridge this gap between the incredible discoveries that modern science and my science, cosmology, is about, and the thirst and the hunger of everyone really to be part of those discoveries. So all the while, I think in the back of my mind, I had this apocryphal story about Ernest Hemingway, which I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, it's too good a story not to be true. And so I just tell you what the story is. And the story goes that Hemingway was once challenged at a dinner table by some of his friends to come up with an entire novel with only 6 words. So Hemingway, being Hemingway, took on the challenge. He sat there for a while, he thought about it, and then grabbed a napkin, and on it he wrote, "For sale, baby shoes, never worn." Which is quite striking, frankly. And it's an entire word, an entire novel encompassed in these 6 words. And of course, everyone here in this room will fill in the gaps in their own way. You will build a story around those words. Your imagination will be brought to the fore, and you will create your own story. And each one of our stories will be different and really creative. And so I was looking for something that could translate what is now known as a flash fiction for science. Was it possible to do something like that with science and cosmology in particular? Then one day something interesting happened. I stumbled online on the Upgore 5. Upgore 5 is a cartoon of the hugely successful XKCD series of web comics. Now, for those of you who are not necessarily geeks, XKCD is a series of cartoons created by Randall Munroe, which revolves around physics-based or computer science-based jokes. And it's very geeky. I don't get those jokes most of the time because I'm a computer scientist and most of them are about IT and stuff like that. But they're incredibly funny when you get them, which is 5% of the time. This one, the Upgore 5 was a simple idea. It was a picture of, as you can see, the Saturn V moon rocket, but labeled using only the most common 1,000 words in English. And because Saturn, moon, and rocket were not on the 1,000 words list, Randall called it the Upgore 5 because it was number 5 and it goes up. And then he labeled all the parts in different ways, funny ways. For example, the escape pod became a thing to help people escape really fast if there is a problem and everything is on fire, so they decide not to go to space. The oxygen tanks became cold air for burning and breathing. This part had a very big problem once. And then the lunar landing module became the part that flies down to the other world with 2 people inside, and so on and so forth. So you could see it was a funny little idea. And somebody had taken this idea and put on a web-based challenge to write up your job description using these 1,000 words. So when I saw it, I thought, well, let me try it. I'll try and write up what it is to be an astrophysicist using this format. And so I'll do it in 10 minutes, and then 3 hours later, I was still trying to do it. Then I came up with a few paragraphs I was fairly happy with, hugely frustrated. But then I put them on my website, and that was that until a few days later, I happened to give a public talk at an art venue in East London, the art building, and the person who introduced me said, this is blah, 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 and one of the things he does, he writes about his job using 1,000 words. And one person in the audience, at the end, asked me about this 1,000 words business. I didn't quite understand what it was about. Could you explain? And because I had it in front of me, my computer, I thought, well, let me read it to you aloud. It's going to be better if I just tell you what I wrote, so you get an idea of what this is. So this is what I had written about my job. I study tiny bits of matter that are all around us, but that we cannot see, which we call dark matter. We know dark matter is out there because it changes the way other big, faraway things move, such as stars and star crowds. We want to understand what dark matter is made of because it could tell us about where everything around us came from and what will happen next. To study dark matter, people like me use big things that have taken lots of money, thought, and people to build. Some of those things fly way above us. Some are deep inside the ground. Some are large rings that make tiny pieces of normal matter kiss each other as they fly around very, very fast, almost as fast as light. We hope that we can hear the whisper of dark matter if we listen very carefully. We take all the whispers from all the listening things and we put them together in our computers. We use big computers to do this, as there are lots and lots of tiny whispers we need to detect. I go to places all over the world to talk to other people like me. Together we can think better and work faster. Together perhaps we can even find new, better ways to listen to dark matter. Most of them are good people. And after we talk, we go out and have a drink and talk some more. So what happened, I read this aloud and people gave me a very warm round of applause, actually much better than I had gotten during my talk. And I wasn't asking for it, I was so not asking for it. Thank you. But that got me thinking. That's where the idea came from, that maybe, just maybe, this format was interesting and powerful enough to take all these abstract ideas and get rid of all the jargon that applies to astrophysical communication science sometimes, and just try to explain it simply and see whether it was possible to do it using 1,000 words. Was there a concept, was there an idea that could not be expressed in this very simple language, and could I get to talk about very distant phenomena such as dark matter, dark energy, the Big Bang, the existence of other universes without using all those words? And that was my challenge. Fortunately, I had a beautiful, inspiring place to be doing this because I was at the University of California, Santa Barbara for a 3-month research stay. So every day I would go to my office and beautifully sit down for a few hours and try to work out this, work out something about the existence of dark matter, and equally whether I could possibly put it in these 1,000 words. And this is what I would see from my office window every day, and that's possibly where the inspiration for the title, The Edge of the Sky, came from. But when I started doing this, I was incredibly frustrated because I really wanted to use words that were not on the list. I couldn't use telescope, I couldn't use universe, planet, cosmos, energy, Big Bang, gravity, particle. None of those words were on the list. So galaxy was in there, scientist, moon, fog. I mean, fog wasn't on the list. I mean, fog is important because not only because people living in England never know fog, but because the early universe can be described as a sort of high energy fog. And so, you know, if I wanted to do that, I didn't have the words energy, I didn't have the word fog. I had high, but that really didn't help me. Now, Big Bang I thought was easy. Okay, I don't have Big Bang, but, because this was the hot beginning of the universe, and it was a high temperature, high energetic environment, I can call it the hot flash. And I did that. I called it the hot flash until my editor looked at the first draft of my book and said, no, you can't call it the hot flash. And then I realized that maybe I was better off calling it the big flash. So I learned something new. But the thing is that little by little, as I started grappling with the difficulties that this self-imposed straitjacket imposed on me, something interesting started to happen. A new voice emerged from the format of the book itself, and all those words got substituted by other words that were just as good, or so I heard. So telescopes became big seers. The universe is all there is, and so it couldn't be the all there is. Planets are crazy stars because they go around in a pattern way in the sky that does not conform to the way stars appear in the sky. The Big Bang is the big flash, Earth the home world, particles become drops. Scientists, well, what defines scientists in my mind is the fact that we never graduate from university, really. And so we keep studying all our life, and so we are student people, and so a scientist is a student person. Galaxies are star crowds, and the moon is the sun's sister, obviously. And so, little by little, a new voice started to appear, and I started being more comfortable with this new language, and became easier and easier as I continued trying to explain the universe using this language. And so those are the words that I ended up using, 707 out of 1,000 possible words, and you will see a word cloud that highlights which words were most recurrent in the book. Dark, because of all the dark mysteries that the universe is about, drops for particle, people because of the scientist, star, matter, lots of dark matter, big, stuff are big in the universe, etc. And so 707 words was all I ended up using in this quest. Now, what I ended up with is a tiny little book. You can see it's up to just only 96 pages, but I know that people are busy, so maybe it is too long a book for you to read in its entirety. And so what I thought is, I'll give you a brief summary, as brief a summary as I can tonight. And so the book covers essentially everything from distant planets in distant star systems to the Big Bang to the possibility of multiverses. And it's organized in 10 chapters. And each chapter has got a haiku to begin the chapter. So haiku is this Japanese-inspired short poetic form. It's just a three-liner which tries to condense the content of the chapter in just a few words. And so if I take all the 10 chapters and each one of the 10 haikus, I get 30 lines, and I get a description of the entire all there is in just 63 different words. And here it is. In the clear night, her dark hair mirrors the stars. Blue words going around points of light. Behind the stars, space-time grows silent. Hot kisses leave light very tired. Her pink lips stay dry in the heavy dark rain. A soft song might tell you dark stories. With the last breath, a blushing of light from faraway stars. A silent end, times of light, half remembered. So many words, all that can be is. Everything opens, the smallest touch of a rose. So that's the entire universe, and maybe there was just a little bit too condensed. Maybe this doubly condensed version was a little bit too short. And so what I tried to do in the book was to follow the adventure of this fictional character, a female scientist, a woman, a student woman, who goes out for one night observations to seek the help of Big Seer, one of the largest telescopes on Earth, to unravel the mystery of dark matter. And so we follow her from sunrise to sunset, and we follow her thoughts as she thinks about how her perspective on the all there is has changed over the years, and about the big mysteries that still keep scientists up, trying to uncover them. So what are those big mysteries? Well, let me give you a crash course in cosmology, if I may, just to strain for a second about the theme of this evening. Here is the night sky, and the full moon we're all familiar with. But what I want you to focus on tonight is this tiny little square, the yellow square you can see, compared to the moon. You can see it's a tiny little square piece of sky. In fact, it's so small that it would fit inside the eye of a needle held at arm's length. So it's a tiny fraction of the sky. And yet, if you look at the part of the sky with a powerful telescope, the Hubble Space Telescope, this is what you see. A magnificent tapestry of distant galaxies, 5,500 galaxies in that tiny eye of a needle, each one of them containing hundreds of billions of stars like the Sun. You can see if I zoom in, those points of light really are galaxies, just like our Milky Way. And the most amazing discovery, the most mind-boggling discovery of modern cosmology is that all that you see in this picture is actually a tiny fraction of all there is out there. The visible part of the universe is about 5% of the total. And so, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but 96% of the universe is missing, and we don't know what it's made of. And those two, the mystery of what the dark side of the universe is. So here's a picture of the baby universe. That's the picture of the dark side of the universe. What this dark side of the universe is really what keeps us awake, and what the mystery that we're trying to crack in modern cosmology. And so here's a summary of what we know, and crucially what we don't know about the universe. Here is the composition of the universe. And the normal matter, the stuff that you and I are made of, is only 5% of the total. And then the tiny little yellow sliver in that pie is matter that we can see, everything you saw in the previous slide. There's other normal matter that is not giving out light that we know about, that's the red part of the pie. And then there is dark matter, 23% of the universe is made of dark matter, possibly a new type of particle. And what in the book I call the dark push, 73% of the universe is made of this force, this energy that's making the universe expand faster and faster with time. And what these two components are is precisely what we're trying to figure out. And so the question for me was, how do I talk about these very abstruse concepts in a way that people can relate to? How do we speak as public science communicators, not just to people's brains, but also to their hearts? And so this is what the challenge of the book is, and whether I succeeded or not is a question only readers can answer. And I'm very glad that I had the collaboration of Antoine Desprez, who's the young talented illustrator who made the beautiful illustrations for the book. Here's the one that he came up with to describe dark matter. And so how do we talk about dark matter using only the 1,000 words? It seems crazy that student people should think that there is a lot more stuff that you can't see than stuff that you can see. Still, they do. In fact, they believe that there is about 5 times more dark matter than normal matter. If you look around us with a far-seer, you will realize that the wide road is made of many, many stars. There are about 4 times 10 stars in the wide road for each person on our home world. And if you use a big seer, you will find that there are as many other star crowds in the sky as there are stars in the white road. And yet, all of this is just a tiny bit of everything there is. And then the book goes on to explain a little bit more what this dark matter might be made of. Let me end with the bleak prospect for the future of our universe. The key to the future of our universe is dark energy. There's this, what I call in the book, the dark push. It's making the universe expand forever at an ever-accelerating rate. So this is what lies in store for us a few billion years down the road. The student people already had a deep question to answer. What is dark matter made of? Now we add 2 more questions. Where does the dark push come from? And why do the 2 together add up to 20 times more than the normal matter out there? Until those questions are answered, many student people will spend many nights without sleeping, thinking about them. One thing appears to be clear. If the dark push is what the dying stars say it is, then it will continue to push things away from one another. The bigger the all there is becomes, the more empty space there will be, and the more dark push. This will make the all there is grow even bigger, even faster, and so on for all time. You can't stop the dark push. All other star crowds will fly away from us faster and faster until at some point, far away in time, we won't be able to see them anymore. The all there is will become even bigger and almost totally empty. Nothing will be left but dark silence. That's what awaits. Unfortunately, if our theories of the universe are correct, not in the next 200 billion years or so nothing to lose your sleep about, although we, the scientists, are worried about it. So, you can see that this language is very different, and certainly The Edge of the Sky is a science book unlike any other you might have read and you're unlikely to read in the future. And I don't know whether this is a useful way for us to be communicating science. It was for me very much of an experiment. I did not start writing this book with the intention of writing the book. I wrote it because I wanted to see whether the format would work, and it was very much an experiment for myself. And I'm delighted to see that perhaps some other people can find it interesting too. But one thing is clear: the kind of language that we need to talk about the complex, incredibly complex science that cutting-edge research is investigating needs to be rethought, because obviously we can't talk to the general public, we can't get a dialogue going with the general public, with stakeholders, with funding bodies going, unless we are able and capable of translating the importance and the excitement of this research in a powerful, compelling way. And I think this should be the job of every scientist. Our job is publicly funded, and it's only our duty to get back to people and share with them the excitement and the incredible discoveries that we are making. So let me end with the way the book ends. When after everything is said and done, there is more work to be done. And that's the end of the book and the end of my talk. sits down. The big blue body of water in front of her seems to go on without edges and without end. She can feel the warm hand of the sun on her face. She feels happy. The night's work has gone well. Big Seer has done a great job, the best that could be done. She can go home now. But her job has only just begun. There is much more left to do in the coming weeks and months before she can make sense of what Big Seer saw last night. Letters and words and entire books are hidden in what Big Seer has given her, written in the strange tongue of the old Greeks. Little by little, she will understand it better and better. All she needs to do is ask the right questions in the right way, and she might learn the truth. She smiles, and the sun smiles back at her. Thank you very much.
Nice knocking over the water there, perfectly timed. So thank you. That was Dr. Roberto Trotta. I saw a tweet from him saying he was very excited about giving this lecture. I can see exactly why. Now, no, don't go that way, Roberto. You're going to be on the panel. Go to the first in our panel. And since he was too discreet to completely plug it, let me just say one more time, the edge of the sky, all you need to know about all there is out now. Now, if we can we're going to get the other two members of our panel up. There's a bit of jiggling around of things to do as well, so don't be distracted by that as well. So please welcome first of our two panels. First we have cancer genetics researcher turned writer, broadcaster and author of Like a Virgin, How Science is Redesigning the Rules of Sex, Aarathi Prasad. And having the author of Like a Virgin here and the former presenter of The Material World, it would be nice if our next speaker was the former editor of Vogue or lived on La Isla Bonita. I can tell you that George Zarkadakis' favourite Madonna song is Papa Don't Preach, but perhaps more relevantly, he's gone from a PhD in artificial intelligence to becoming a leading science writer and communicator, including plays and novels, and was originally based in Greece and is now based in foggy, apparently, London. George Zarkadakis. And so the plan now is we're going to start getting, hopefully we'll start to get some of your tweets in. Reminder, it's hashtag ELCSCI. Whoop. I'm going to get tangled up in this cable as well, so I've got a bit more room to move. And I'm going to throw in a few questions as well. What we've got is Ria is sitting here, and she will, as tweets and things come in as well, she'll hopefully draw my attention to them. But I'm just going to start with a few questions and thoughts from me. I'll start with a few things about basically thinking from Roberto's book and expanding on it. One thing I want to say to everybody before we start, yours is not the only great example of pizza-based science communication I've seen. One of my favourite tweets recently was somebody who tweeted something which will always stick in my head, how to remember the volume of a cylinder, which is a picture of a pizza, radius Z, depth A, and the volume of a cylinder is pi times Z times Z times Z. Pizza. Brilliant little tweet, very effective piece of communication. So I suppose we should start with Aarathi and George. What you make of Roberto's endeavour, his minimalist approach to all there is. Oh, interesting pause.
It reminded me of maybe what I don't know, our ancestors around a campfire, the kind of language, not knowing language when you look up in wonder, and it had an element of great wonder about it. The kind of childlike wonder that all of us had when we looked up at the sky. Because the language, I thought the book was art. It reminded me of art book series where you have the freedom to play with an idea. And it also reminded me, for example, of Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories. The simplicity and beauty of it. And I had a problem reading it though, and I think that's because I'm not a physicist, but I'm one of those people in academia who are used to complicated language. I loved reading it, but I thought the best thing I could do is give it to my daughter because I wanted to see what she thought. She's 12. And I gave it to her, and she absolutely loved it, and she said, there's all the elements of a great story there as well. And
science does have all the elements.
And it does. And it's very interesting because she, at school when she's taught to write, all of us, when I started writing, I remember my first draft of my book, and it was full of really big, clever words to show how clever I was. And then afterward I realised this isn't... It has to be a beautiful and compelling story with the narrative elements that great stories have always had. And I think that's what Roberto's book does have.
George?
Well, what I found interesting in Roberto's book was, despite the fact that it bound language with this very narrow confinement of those 700 words, ultimately, and less than 1,000 words, there were
700 is less than 1,000.
Yes, indeed. What a coincidence.
Keep those facts coming.
What I found interesting was that language, there's something intrinsic about language that breaks through whatever confinement you put onto it. And indeed, the metaphors that you continuously use with your sort of limited vocabulary are always there. The all-seer, all the other words are just full of metaphor. And I believe that's what balances the book. You have a limited vocabulary, but metaphors do most of the work.
And that's an interesting point, well, it is to me anyway, because what you're almost implying there is that we tend to, between the two of you, what we're saying is we tend to use longer words, but a paucity of imagination. If we constrain our language, then our imagination has to be that much better, and therefore our ability to come up with metaphors and capture the imagination of people gets greater as well. You said, 3/4 of the way through your talk, Roberto, I don't know if this is a useful way to communicate science, which may not be great for sales, but I understand, having done it though, what is your instinct? And you said there will never be another book like it.
This was experimental, and so when I said that, I meant it. And if people buy it and read it and are delighted by it, I'm over the moon with it. I should say with the Sun Sister.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
But ultimately, it's an experiment, and so I don't know what the outcome is going to be, and so I want to hear from my readers what they think and how they feel about it, what they work, what the metaphors work, or whether they are in the way of furthering their understanding. But the important point to me is that the way I approach this is not in a way that I want to explain the nitty-gritty detail of quantum mechanics and multiverse and argues of that matter. There are many fantastic popular science books out there that already do that in 300 plus pages. This book is different. This book tries to stimulate imagination, tries to engage a new cross-section of society and new readers perhaps who would not necessarily pick up